Hello everyone, and welcome to my Young and the Restless official 24 channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. The night Claire finally uncovered the truth was one she would never forget, not because of some dramatic explosion or a confrontation she had seen coming, but because everything she thought she understood about the two people she trusted most, Holden and Sienna, shattered in a single breath, leaving her standing in the cold shadow of their deception. For weeks, maybe even months, she had sensed something off, something that tugged at the edges of her intuition like a whisper she couldn't quite catch. Holden's eyes darting away at the wrong moment. Sienna's too perfect confidence. The way conversation suddenly died when she walked into a room. It was subtle at first, easy to excuse as stress, coincidence, paranoia, but tonight, all of those instincts roared to life when she finally pushed open the door to the dimly lit cabin on the edge of town, the same cabin Holden had sworn he hadn't been to in years. Her heart hammered as she stepped inside, her mind racing with questions she wasn't ready to face. But there, standing together in the flickering glow of a single lamp, were Holden and Sienna, caught in the middle of a conversation so damning, so revealing, that the world as Claire knew it simply tilted on its axis. She froze in place, her breath catching when she heard Sienna whisper, "She can never know. If Claire finds out what really happened, it's over for both of us." That sentence alone was enough to make Claire feel the floor fall out from under her, but it wasn't even the worst of it. Because the next words came from Holden, the man who had spent months convincing her he cared, who had looked her in the eye and promised that he would always be honest with her. "I know," he murmured, his voice heavy with guilt. "But I didn't have a choice. Not then. Not now." Those 7 words detonated in Claire's chest, ripping through every fragile piece of trust she had built with him. She stumbled back, and the soft thud of her shoe against the floor made both of them whip around. In that moment, Claire saw everything she needed to know reflected in their faces, the panic, the guilt, the realization that their secret was no longer safe. "Claire, wait," Holden said, rushing toward her, but she took a step back, her arms wrapping around herself as though she were holding her own heart together. "Don't," she whispered, her voice trembling but sharp enough to cut through the air. "Do not take another step." Sienna, always the composed, calculating one, tried to smooth things over with a steady tone that only infuriated Claire further. "It's not what it looks like." Claire laughed, a humorless, broken sound. "Every liar says that right before their whole world burns down." She turned her glare on Holden. "You looked me in the eyes and lied to me. Every single day." Holden's face tightened with remorse, but Claire could see the battle behind his eyes, fear, regret, desperation. And that was when she realized the truth wasn't simply uncomfortable or inconvenient. It was destructive. The kind of truth that rewrites everything that came before it. Her voice cracked as she demanded, "Tell me. Right now. What have you both been hiding from me?" The silence that followed stretched long enough for her pulse to throb painfully in her throat. Sienna was the first to break. "Claire," she began, "you weren't supposed to find out like this." Claire's hands curled into fists. "Find out what?" Sienna exhaled, her mask slipping for the first time. "The deal Holden made, it involved me. And you." Holden shut his eyes, as though bracing for impact. Claire felt her knees weaken. "A deal? With Sienna? What kind of deal?" Holden ran a trembling hand through his hair. "I was trying to protect you." "By lying to me?" she shot back. "By hiding something with her?" Sienna interjected, "Claire, Holden and I, stop talking," Claire snapped, her voice sharp enough to slice steel. She didn't want excuses. She wanted answers. Holden finally met her stare, his voice barely above a whisper. "Claire, the night Sienna disappeared months ago? The night everyone thought she fled town? She didn't leave. I found her. I helped her. And the reason I did, is because of what she had on you." The room tilted. Claire's stomach knotted so hard she felt nauseous. "What she had on me?" Sienna lifted her chin, the confidence returning to her posture even as guilt flickered in her eyes. I knew something about your past, something you didn't know about yourself. Holden didn't want you to learn the truth, not until he figured out how to deal with it. Claire took a step back, her breath quickening. What truth? Holden swallowed hard. Sienna found records. About your family. Claire's heartbeat thundered in her ears. My family is dead. Not all of them, Sienna said quietly. The shock hit Claire like a slap. She stared at Sienna, her voice trembling. What do you mean, not all of them? Holden closed the distance between them slowly, as though approaching a wild animal he feared might bolt. Your mother, he said softly. She's alive. Claire felt the room sway. The words didn't make sense. Her mother had died, Claire had lived her entire life believing that. No, she whispered, shaking her head. That's not possible. Sienna stepped forward. It is. And Holden has known for months. The betrayal was sharp, slicing into her like glass. Claire turned to Holden, her eyes burning. You knew? You knew my mother was alive and you didn't tell me? Holden's composure cracked, his voice cracking as he tried to explain. Claire, I wanted to protect you, your mother, she's involved in something dangerous. Sienna came to me because she was using that information against me. Against you. I had to keep you out of it. Claire felt her chest tighten until she could barely breathe. You should have told me, she whispered, her voice raw. You should have trusted me. Holden reached out, but she stepped back again. You lied. Every day. You made me feel crazy for questioning things, and all this time you were hiding the one thing I deserved to know more than anything. Sienna folded her arms, her expression unreadable. I told him this would happen, she said quietly. You can't lie to Claire. She finds the truth eventually. Claire shot her a glare. And you, what were you planning to do with this information? Keep blackmailing him? Keep manipulating us both? Sienna didn't deny it. Holden finally broke. Claire, please. I was trying to protect you. Your mother isn't who you think. She's dangerous. And she's coming back. Claire's breath hitched. Coming back? Sienna nodded. She's already in town. She contacted me first. Claire felt ice crawl through her veins. Why you? Holden's answer was immediate. Because Sienna knew who your mother really was long before either of us did. She's been connected to her world for years. Claire's heart pounded, anger mixing with fear. So you've both been working behind my back? Making decisions about my life? About my family? Holden stepped closer again, but the look Claire gave him stopped him cold. It was over. Something fundamental between them had snapped. You don't get to make those choices for me, Claire said, her voice low but shaking with fury. You don't get to decide what I can handle. Or what I deserve to know. Sienna exhaled. Claire, you're stronger than you think. But this, your mother, she isn't someone you can just confront. There are people involved who would save it, Claire cut her off. I don't want your warnings. I don't want your excuses. And I sure as hell don't want your lies. She turned back to Holden, tears burning in her eyes. I trusted you. I defended you. I believed every word you said. And for what? For you to stand here and admit that you've been lying to me for months? That you were conspiring with her? She gestured sharply at Sienna. I don't even know who you are anymore. Holden's face crumpled. Claire, don't say that. Please. I'm still the same person. No, she whispered. You're not. And neither is she. Because the two of you took something from me I can never get back. What's that? Holden asked, his voice barely steady. Claire stepped forward, her eyes locked on his. My ability to ever trust you again. With that, she turned and walked toward the door, each step heavy, painful, but necessary. Holden called after her, desperation cracking through every syllable. "Claire, please, let me explain everything. Just hear me out." She paused at the doorway but didn't turn around. "No more explanations. No more lies. I'm done." When she finally stepped outside, the cold night air hit her like a slap, but it was nothing compared to the storm inside her. Behind her, Holden's voice broke as he begged her not to walk away, and Sienna's silence echoed with guilt. Claire didn't stop. Couldn't stop. Because tonight wasn't just the night she learned the truth, it was the night she reclaimed her power. The night she realized that the people she loved the most were capable of betraying her in ways she never imagined. And as she disappeared into the darkness, one thing became clear: Genoa City was about to feel the aftershocks of the truth she had uncovered. And no one, not Holden, not Sienna, not even the mother she thought was dead, was ready for what Claire would do next. But as the night dragged on and the weight of her discovery settled deeper into her bones, Claire Steard couldn't escape the growing realization that nothing about the last several months had been real. Not her romance with Holden, not the tentative friendship she had begun to build with Sienna, not the fragile sense of belonging she had been quietly nurturing in Genoa City. Tonight had destroyed all of it, shattered it as mercilessly as fractured glass on marble. And as she sat alone in her dimly lit apartment, the evidence sprawled across her coffee table like a graveyard of broken trust, Claire understood something vital for the first time: she wasn't just angry. She wasn't just hurt. She was changed. Forever. Her fingers trembled as she lifted the torn envelope again, the one she had yanked from Holden's desk drawer earlier that afternoon, the one addressed to Sienna Bacall and stamped with a date from nearly 5 months earlier. 5 months. Her breath hitched as she let that number echo in her mind. 5 months of smiles. 5 months of confessions under the stars. 5 months of promises that seemed heartfelt when they were nothing but smoke and mirrors. Holden had looked her in the eye so many times, told her she was safe with him, that she could trust him, that the past was behind him. And all the while, he was hiding the one thing she could never forgive: a secret alliance with Sienna. As the wind rattled her window, Claire pressed her palms to her eyes, willing herself not to cry. She didn't want to cry for Holden. She didn't want to cry for Sienna. She didn't want to cry for the girl she used to be, the girl who kept giving people chances they hadn't earned. She inhaled sharply, forcing herself upright. No more tears. No more soft edges. No more trusting the wrong people. Holden had been lying to her from the beginning. And Sienna, well, Sienna's truth was even darker than Claire had dared imagine. She gathered the stack of printouts she had pulled from the file Holden tried to hide: bank transfers, encrypted messages, the suspicious note signed only with an initial that now clearly belonged to Sienna. It was all right here. Proof. Proof Holden had been covering for Sienna, protecting her, helping her navigate a secret that could topple everything in Genoa City. Claire's pulse throbbed at her temples as she replayed every moment of the past month in her mind. Sienna's nervous glances. The strange phone call she always took in private. Holden's sudden mood shifts whenever Sienna's name came up. The nights he claimed to be running errands or clearing his head. Claire wanted to scream at herself. The signs had been there. She had ignored them. Because she had wanted to believe in him. Because she had wanted him to be different. Because she had needed him to be someone she could trust in a world where she had burned so many bridges. And now, as she stared at the damning truth scattered in front of her, Claire felt a fiery determination ignite inside her chest. She swore she would never again ignore her intuition, never again silence the voice that whispered when something was off. Holden and Sienna thought they could manipulate her, that she'd be too naive, too desperate for love, too forgiving to ever see the full picture. They thought wrong. With trembling but deliberate hands, Claire packed all the documents into a folder and snapped it shut. She needed answers. She needed explanations. But more than that, she needed to decide what she would do with this newfound power. Holden and Sienna had spent months playing her like a pawn. But Claire was no pawn. Not anymore. Outside, thunder cracked violently, shaking her window and sending a streak of lightning across the skyline. The perfect backdrop for a night of truths finally clawing their way into the open. Holden paced across his living room, running a hand through his hair every few seconds. His heartbeat echoed in his ears. He had sensed something in Claire today, a coldness, a distance, the kind she rarely used unless she had already made a decision. She knew. He didn't know how much, but she knew something. And if Claire knew, then Sienna was in danger. And if Sienna was in danger, everything they had been working toward these past months could crumble. He checked the clock again, each passing minute tightening the knot in his stomach. Why wasn't she answering his texts? Why wasn't she picking up his calls? Because she finally saw you for the liar you are. Holden swallowed hard. He hated that voice. The one reminding him of every mistake, every compromised decision, every choice he had made to protect Sienna, choices that had spiraled out of control far quicker than he had anticipated. He grabbed his keys and headed for the door, but the moment he reached for the knob, a sharp knock startled him. He froze. His heart seemed to stop mid-beat. Claire. She didn't wait for an invitation. The moment he opened the door, she strode past him, her expression unwavering, icy, determined. Holden watched her move, his stomach sinking with dread. This wasn't the Claire who laughed with him at society. This wasn't the Claire who pressed her hand to his cheek and whispered she wanted to see where their connection went. This was a different Claire, one he didn't recognize. One that scared him. Claire, he breathed out, trying to sound calm. I was just about to come see you. She didn't respond. She placed the folder on his coffee table with a controlled, deliberate motion, the kind of gesture that carried more weight than any shouted accusation. Holden's blood ran cold. Where did you get that? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Don't insult me, Claire said, her tone razor sharp. Not tonight. The air shifted between them, tense and suffocating. Holden forced himself to take a step closer. Claire, whatever you think you saw. I didn't see anything, she interrupted, lifting her chin. I found everything. She opened the folder and began laying out the documents one by one, like evidence presented in a courtroom. Holden's jaw tightened. Bank transfers. Messages. Photos. The letter he thought he had burned but must have kept a duplicate of without realizing. Explain, Claire demanded. Or I will walk out that door and never look back. Holden stared at the damning spread of papers, each one a lie he'd told, a broken promise, a betrayal. He exhaled shakily. Claire, it's not what you think. Her eyes flashed, cold lightning in the dark. Then tell me what it is. Holden hesitated. And that was his biggest mistake. Claire laughed, a single, bitter sound that cut straight through him. That's what I thought. She turned toward the door, but he reached out, grabbing her wrist. Claire, please. Give me a chance to tell you everything. She looked at his hand, then back at him with a stare that stripped the breath from his lungs. You had months to tell me, she said quietly. Months, Holden. And you chose lies every single time. Her voice cracked, just barely, but she didn't let him see her waver. That hurt him more than any shouted accusation ever could. She pulled her wrist from his grasp, and for a second he could see the heartbreak she was trying desperately to hide. Claire, he whispered, but words wouldn't come. Not the right ones, anyway. Don't, she said, stepping back. Just tell me one thing. Were you ever going to tell me the truth about you and Sienna? He closed his eyes. That was answer enough. Claire inhaled sharply, nodding as if she'd expected nothing less. All right, she said, gathering the papers. If you won't talk, maybe she will. Claire, no. But she was already gone. Claire stood frozen in the center of her apartment, the last pieces of Holden and Sienna's deception now fully assembled in her mind like a hideous mosaic. The truth wasn't just shocking, it was calculated, cold, and wrapped in layers of manipulation that made her stomach twist. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It wasn't something they could explain away with tearful eyes and soft apologies. No, this had been a long, deliberate game, and she had been the one played like a fool. But no more. Her pulse throbbed with clarity now, driving out the confusion and heartbreak that had paralyzed her for so long. Holden and Sienna thought they could craft their own narrative, shape her reactions, push her toward choices that ultimately benefited them. They thought they could dangle bits of truth and hide the rest like some twisted puppet show. But they had underestimated her, badly. And now the consequences were coming. Claire didn't bother wiping the tears from her face as she grabbed her coat. She didn't bother checking her makeup or trying to compose herself.